I think a lot of that goes back to being a child actor because I was a young woman in the business at a time when things were so terrible. I was always a problem. Like, I was pretty, but not Hollywood pretty. I was talented, but they couldn't take advantage of me because I was well protected. And so I was always just a problem. And I think that gave me, weirdly, a really strong sense of self because I kind of grew up knowing that there was not going to be an easy path for me. If I wanted to do what I wanted to do, I was going to just have to figure out how to do it because no one else was willing to create it for me.
Yeah. I can so relate to that.
And why does it feel like we're backsliding?
I think it's on purpose. I mean, this is going to be my conspiracy side showing up, but like...
Please, let's go. See, what did we say? This is the conversations we'd be having offline, so please go.
Welcome to Behind the Author Brand, a limited series where we take a behind-the-scenes look at what it's like to be an author these days. Join me for meaningful conversations about exactly how real authors navigate their careers, marketing, branding, promotion, community building, and so much more. I'm your host, author brand strategist and expert, and also writer, Andrea Guevara. Thanks so much for joining us. Dubbed the Adele of audiobooks by The New Yorker, Julia Whelan is an author, screenwriter, lifelong actor, and acclaimed audiobook narrator. Most recently, Spotify named her Narrator of the Year, as her voice was listened to more than any other in the app globally. Her debut novel, the international bestseller My Oxford Year, is also now a Netflix film. Thank You for Listening, her sophomore rom-com set in the audiobook world, was a Best of the Year pick at Amazon, Audible, and NPR. She is also the founder of Audiobrary, an audio publishing company and retailer. And Casanova LLC, the book within a book from Thank You for Listening, began as an audience-nominated Audiobrary original, as did her annotated Victorian poetry anthology, The Poetry of My Oxford Year. And the good news is Casanova LLC, in print version, is going to be released by Kensington Publishing in spring of 2027. I'm so delighted to share this conversation with my friend, Julia Whelan. Julia, thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to talk to you.
I'm so happy to be here. We were just saying before we started rolling, but it feels like it's been forever. So this is equal parts just catch up and also professional, I feel.
Yeah. You get a peek behind the scenes of our friendship as well as the brand, I suppose.
Precisely.
Well, I want to jump right in and talk about how you are a multi-hyphenate creator, because this is actually one of the questions I get a lot. They're not necessarily actors, narrators, entrepreneurs, and authors like you, but they often write in different genres or they do a few different things. And so I know that's going to be really interesting for people to hear about. So you are an actress. You are a narrator.
I have been known to. Yes. Yes.
You are an author. You are an entrepreneur. Are there any other things that we need to add to this?
No, I think that's good. I feel good. I feel good on that.
So how did this happen? I mean, let's start with actor first, because that was really the first professional thing, right?
It was, yes. Okay. Yeah. I was a child actor. Yeah, I was a child actor. I've been acting since I was 9. Well, 5 if you count like community theater, but professionally since I was 9. And I loved it. I was always obviously drawn to it. This was not a thing that my parents forced me into. If anything, they were like, "Oh God, why?" I hit kind of like the peak of my professional acting career in high school. I was on a television show for the last 3 years of high school, and then that show ended. I went to college. I wanted to do something else, and frankly, I'd always been interested in writing. And so I went to school for creative writing. And then at my college graduation, one of my best friend's mothers happened to work in audiobooks. And she said, "You kind of have this perfect skill set that's like an acting background and a hypersensitivity to writing, you might be very good at narrating audiobooks. So I have been juggling these 3 careers for a very long time, although I don't really do a lot of on-camera acting anymore. But they all come from the same like storytelling trunk of a tree. And so they're just different branches or limbs, but I feel they are connected. But it's an incredibly difficult thing to try to brand. And I remember when we talked about this years ago when my first book was coming out, you know, how do I do this? What is my presence even? And at the time, something as simple as putting together a website. Like, did I need to have different websites for all of these different aspects of me, or could it all live on the same website? And I remember going to Robin Lee, because she was the only other person I knew who was an actor and an author. And I was like, what did you do? And she was like, I don't know. So it's just one of those things where it's like just existing in space as you are and showing up the way you are and letting people discover the different aspects of you has really that's all I've been able to do.
That makes sense. I mean, I think one of the things that you do throughout all of your work is have this consistency of how you show up as a human being, even as you're being different creatively, if you're doing different voices or as an actress doing different things, and as an author describing other characters and having your own distinct voice there. But I think that one of the things that's always suited you really well, you've had this sense of self. And I wonder, is that true, or is that perception? And if it is kind of true that you've had this sense of self through this journey, how did you develop that or grow that over time?
It's a really astute question. I think it's because I was just talking to my husband about this the other day. I was like, part of what is challenging about doing what I'm doing is there's no one to emulate. Like, there's no one that I look at and I'm like, that's the path I want to be on. I have individuals in those individual careers that I'm like, that's what I want. I would love to have that kind of career, but not all of them at once. And so there is no roadmap for this. And I think that I gave up a long time ago trying to fit into a specific type of a person that fit into a specific expectation. And I think a lot of that goes back to being a child actor, because I was a young woman in the business at a time when things were so terrible. It was so bad. And we are starting to look back at that time, the late 90s, early 2000s. We're starting to revisit how horrible we were to young women in media at that time. But I've been saying this recently because there's enough distance now that I can kind of start to grapple with it. I was never what anybody wanted. I was always a problem. Like, I was a size 6. I was pretty, but not Hollywood pretty. I was talented, but they couldn't take advantage of me because I was well protected. And so I was always just a problem. And I think that gave me, weirdly, a really strong sense of self, because I kind of grew up knowing that there was not going to be an easy path for me. If I wanted to do what I wanted to do, I was going to just have to figure out how to do it, because no one else was willing to create it for me.
Yeah. Wow. I can so relate to that. I feel the same. I mean, I was not an actress by any means, but I also felt like I didn't belong in a lot of ways. Like, I didn't have the right hair. I didn't have the right body. No, I didn't have the right face. For the 90s especially, it was a real certain...
Are you seeing like what's happening now? The way people are showing up, and I was like, we were so close. It was so good there for just a moment in time. And why does it feel like we're backsliding?
I think it's on purpose. I mean, this is going to be my conspiracy side showing up, but like...
Please, let's go. See, what did we say? This is the conversations we'd be having offline. So please go.
I mean, we've been in this system of just patriarchal colonial capitalism for a really long time. And I know those are buzzwords, but what I mean by that is people at the top who've always been at the top or who've always wanted to be at the top and now somehow are. The way that they get us to buy more stuff is by undermining our identity. And it's by undermining our sense of self, our sense of purpose, our sense of belonging. And so I think you're right. I think we were almost there. And now that's why we see the people who are in the White House, who are in leadership, who are billionaires or whatever. The US has been bought out for a long time to corporate interests, and we're so close in changing that. But I still have hope. I actually think that this is like I don't want to say it, but like death rattle. It's like,
yeah, I would hope so.
trying.
I do think it's like, some last clutching grasp of the control that used to be there. And I think that the empowerment that has also come in the last couple of decades of truly being able to make stuff yourself. It's still hard because art is hard and commerce is hard and capitalism is hard, and it's still hard. But I think about all of the gatekeeping and the roadblocks that were around when I was first starting to do this, and the idea of being able to, start my own audio publishing company. That would be crazy talk 20 years ago, you know? And people being able to make movies on their phone was unheard of when I first started acting. And so, I think that there is something really freeing about this. But as a result of that, people are going to have to figure out how they show up online, how they show up as a brand, because I don't think my experience is all that unique anymore. I think there's a lot of people that do a lot of things, and you can't really pin them down or put them into specific boxes. I mean, it's a joke, but this is all a result of the gig economy, right? We're all 14 things.
Totally. It is. Yeah. And it is frustrating. And I think it's like you're saying, we have more tools and abilities than ever before, more access. But it's not easy. A lot of people I think who've made a lot of money, for instance, like on YouTube, they came up at just the right time. And I'm not saying that people can't still do that, but there's something to be said for when you came up at the right time on TikTok or YouTube or whatever the platform was as it was rising, when it was still in that sweet spot, when there's trying to get you on there and addicted, basically, and you could really make a difference, and take off. But I think that's why it's interesting to talk to people like you who've done and are doing different things. And it's not necessarily based on a tool or a platform. You know what I mean? It's an adaptation, but it's also creation, not just trying to fit in the mold of a format.
Yeah. And I think, again, the clarifying thing for me was just learning so early in my life that was not a path for me. And so there was something actually weirdly freeing, incredibly frustrating and disappointing, but then ultimately freeing in just, it was because everything was so narrow at that time that I had to figure something else out.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, talk about getting into something right at the perfect time. I was not even aware of audiobooks when I started doing it. I didn't know what they were. I didn't know how to do it. No one really did. Everyone was figuring it out. And to be inside that industry as it's exploded into what it is today has been really illuminating. And that is another part that it's given me the understanding of being in something as it was created, which gives me the confidence to try to change systems or work within them when possible, push against them when necessary, try to rebuild them to the best of my ability, because I really see it holistically. And that's a very hard thing to do. That's why I gave up on Hollywood. Because this is too big. The rot is too deep. I can't fix this. This I can't. This I can't. I can either participate in it, find joy in it when I can, but I can't rebuild it. I just don't have the tools, and I don't understand it enough because I was always kind of an outsider in it.
Yeah. I think it's interesting as I was hearing you just say that, you did come up as audiobooks were coming up. And I know if someone is starting today wanting to be an audiobook narrator, I'm sure it's much more difficult, not only because
a lot difficult.
yeah, it's a different market, but then there's the whole AI thing as well
Yeah.
that they're fighting
Yeah.
against. Do you think, I hate asking this kind of question, but it's kind of fun too. Do you think if you were coming up now, would you be an audiobook narrator primarily, or would you start your own YouTube show, or,
Man.
would it be different if you were coming up now? And that might be unfair to ask. That's why I say I hate asking it, but
No, it's a good thought experiment. Here's the thing. I just love the work. I think about that a lot, that day to day in this booth, out of this booth, I love doing this work. So that is what has kept me in it, considering it's not well paid. It is a grind. It is mostly a thankless job. It's a very invisible job. Not so much anymore, but certainly when I was starting. But I loved the work so much. It was so fulfilling. I can't be persuaded to do things I'm just not interested in just because I could see like an opportunity. I'm not good at that. So again, it's like the acting thing. I could have, if I wanted to, I could have lost 30 pounds and dyed my hair and gotten a boob job and been like what people needed me to be. I just couldn't be bothered because I didn't want to do it under those conditions. So I don't know that I would have done a YouTube show or something because I just don't think I care enough. Like, I really like this. Left to my own devices, I would be writing way more than I'm writing. That's where I'm happiest. So I would be writing and I would be performing in some capacity, but I don't have that like drive for world domination that would like convince me that I should put all of my eggs in YouTube or something. I don't know.
yeah,
I don't care enough.
I'm so glad I asked that now because I felt kind of bad asking it, but now I'm like, yes.
Yeah, no,
everything you just said.
I liked this job. I liked doing this job before it was cool. So now that it's cool and might actually be profitable, I'm going to stay in it, but I can't I can every once in a while tell, like when a new person comes in, especially, not to be pejorative here to throw them under the bus entirely, but sometimes, these TikTok boys with like nice voices who do audio erotica or something. And it's like, great, you saw an opening in the market and you have this thing that probably a lot of people have told you in your life, oh my God, you have such a great voice. And like, you're making that happen. That's great for you. I don't have that skill. I don't have that truffle hunting nose that like allows me to go find the source of the money. That's just not good for me.
I can so relate. I mean, this is why we get along. I do have that truffle sensing nose, but this is why like I always joke my whole life, if I could just get paid for the ideas and not have to execute anything, that would be amazing. Because
for sure.
Yeah, most of the opportunities I see, I'm like, that's not for me. I have no interest in that, but somebody else should do that.
Somebody should do that. Somebody really should get on that. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually think that it's a great skill to have, not to pat ourselves on the back too much with it, but I just see so many authors, especially struggling with trying to be accepted or trying to prove themselves worthy in the industry with whatever they think is going to do that. And
yeah.
I hate to see that. It's the only thing that matters is that your readers get it.
Right. Of course. Yeah. I think also something happened where, because things move so fast now, right? And especially like with indie publishing, I think there's this sense of you could write to the market because you can do it faster than a traditional pipeline allows you to do it. The question is, should you? Just because you can, should you? This constant evergreen question we ask ourselves. And some people make a very good living doing that. And I respect their business acumen. I just always wonder, is there an animating principle to that work beyond that? And you don't need it. Like, if that is your drive, if you have that entrepreneurial thing, then you are serving yourself by doing it. For me, I have to be creatively satisfied or mentally, like my mental health starts to go off the rails. So that needs to be the priority, where I am engaged in a creative pursuit. And maybe other people feel that way about, business. I just don't.
I totally know what you mean. And I think that when you have a situation where like anybody can do anything, inevitably, it's like we're seeing with the AI slop, there's going to be a lot of bad stuff, just terrible quality stuff. And then there's going to be always the people who care. And I think it applies on both ends. There's so much conversation
that's not new.
Yeah, like, right. It's just a different
It's
tool.
just the robots are doing it now. Right. But that has always, that people have been doing it.
Yep. I hope with the whole AI thing that we're going to continue to see people who take a stand for really wanting human authored things, human narrated things, human made things. And I think we are going to see that because I think it's similar to, when Starbucks was everywhere. And yeah, it annihilated coffee shops for a while, but then it had the reverse effect and all these other local coffee shops were cropping up because people were sick of Starbucks and the, layer of artificiality.
My kind of radical and sometimes not palatable opinion on this right now is we have to, now that this exists, our job is to differentiate ourselves from it. Like any other technological advancement, like any other product. This is where, and I'll get to the branding part of this in a second, but it's the same way that, Amazon did kill a lot of indie bookstores for a while, but indie bookstores have had a resurgence because they have discovered that their business is actually, it's not selling books, it's being community anchors. It's giving people a place to gather in the real world. It's bringing in authors. It's having discussions. You can't just open a bookstore anymore and not have that community engagement component because then you will lose to Amazon.
Yep, 100%.
So you have to find the point of differentiation. And in all honesty, a lot of the synthetic voice has given me a good opportunity to explain why what I do is different. There's, the literary analysis part of it, the how to tell a story. It doesn't know what it's saying. It's just artificially reading the text. That's a product. That's a different product. That's not what I do. I'm not competing with that. But now that it exists, it has actually made people wonder, who are the human beings behind this work? That's been helpful. And the work didn't disappear overnight the way I think a lot of people thought that it would. It's a harder industry to get into. It has killed that starter job of like new authors, indie authors, backlist, like all the places where narrators would cut their teeth 10 years ago. I know a lot of that work has disappeared. And so it's very hard, but you still do have work. There are still opportunities, and there are a lot of authors who are they want to find their narrator partner, And so the branding becomes even more important because to put a name to what I do, to put a face to what I do, to have people recognize there's a human being behind this work suddenly became imperative. It's it's an existential issue now.
Totally. It's something obviously I've been thinking about a lot. And I think that's such a good example.
And same thing with others. Honestly, I think possibly even more so because when the industry becomes saturated with slop, people are going to look for the people they knew beforehand, right? They could trust before. And that's building just relationships with your readers.
Yeah. And it just occurred to me when you were saying this that right now, I think one of the things that's really stressful that we don't talk about openly very much is that there's a base level of stress in our everyday lives caused by the fact that we can't really use our dollars in alliance with our values. And what I mean by that is there are certain things you can only buy on Amazon now. And every car company, every phone company, every computer company, they've all got some majorly ethical, moral issues with them. And yet we're forced, if we want to not live in a hut in the woods, to buy from them. And I don't think we talk about enough how much that grates on our souls. And so when there's an opportunity to buy a book from a real person, from another real person that owns a real bookstore that isn't doing those kinds of things, I think it's actually exciting in that sense. It can be really fulfilling on a different level that maybe we never realized before.
It's very empowering. I can reflect that from, my side of things and starting this this company and doing this, like watching people's response to it and the calls we get, the emails we get, being like, I'm just so happy. I'm so happy I get to be able to like support you directly. And I mean, that's the Patreon model, right? Too. I mean, I think that kind of kicked that off of just, how do we get the art directly to the people who want it? And again, it's an exciting time. It's overwhelming. And it is chaotic. And right now, I think everyone's trying to figure out where the lines are. But like, there is something very, very exciting about what is possible in just tearing down some of these systems.
Yeah. It feels like a little bit of agency in this doom and gloom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about Audiobrary a little bit, because you just kind of alluded to it slightly. So this is the entrepreneur side, the reluctant entrepreneur side.
Yeah.
Tell us first, for people who don't know, what Audiobrary is.
Okay. Audiobrary is born entirely out of righteous rage, which is a great, like, animating, as all good brands. Yeah. So two things have very much bothered me about audio publishing. One is, as an author, I think that authors should get more than they do in traditional models for their rights and their royalties. Originally, back in the day, you would carve out audio rights as a sub-right. You know, the way you carve out film, the way you carve out special editions, those were things that your agent kept and then would go sell. Now you have the Big Five sort of colluding to say no one sells and buys a book unless it includes audio rights. And they're just kind of given away to the publisher, and they have the same royalty rate typically as ebook. And they are, in many genres, substantial 30% plus portion of your sales. So as an author, that irritated me. As a narrator, the thing that I could never get my head around, even when I started in the business, was that narrators don't get royalties. We are, for the most part, SAG-AFTRA actors. We are working under union contracts. About 10 years ago, a lot of us made a very concerted effort to unionize this industry so we can at least get health and retirement. But we do not get royalties the way that on-camera actors get residuals. And in an industry like publishing, which is built on the concept of royalties, in the case of success, here is money. We don't benefit from that. And so I was looking down the barrel of, okay, I've been doing this 17 years. I've done 700 books. I'm slowing down. I just am. My body is breaking down. My voice I need to be more careful than I've been. I can't keep doing volume of 70 books a year. And I shouldn't have to, considering how much money the audiobooks that I have done over the last 17 years are making. And after 5 years of asking publishers, these major corporations, to do the right thing, and being told nobody does that, that's not how audiobooks work, I said, okay, well then what I'm hearing is I need to do it so that you can't say nobody does it anymore. So I started my own audio publishing company that gives narrators royalties and authors a profit share. On the way to doing that, though, I realized that another part of the industry that makes it difficult for everybody is digital retailers take more on audio than they take on anything else. So Audible can take up to 75% off the top. That squeezes everybody, obviously. And for doing what? For being a server? So I started a direct-to-consumer component to this company as well, where you can order directly through the Audiobrary website and listen in the Audiobrary app and know that minus 5% in credit card and processing fees, everything is going to the people who actually created the audiobook.
Amazing.
We are a curated collection of titles. We have the ones that we publish and then a small collection of other people's projects that they come to us ready-made, whether it's a narrator saying, here are my public domain titles, let's put them on Audiobrary, or an author saying, I have these books, they're great, the audio is fantastic, let's do this. We also have a curated collection of HarperCollins titles. We have a distribution agreement with them, and hopefully more publishers to follow. But we're slowly growing because, as you probably got from this conversation, I don't have that growth at all costs, beast it out. tech pro thing. I don't have it. I just don't have it. We're not moving fast and breaking things. We're moving intentionally and improving things.
Yeah. Imagine that.
Yeah. Which I'm always prepared that, someone else is going to do this and do it faster and do it with more money. Because right now I have not taken money. I've turned down offers of money because I don't want someone else telling me what this is before I really know what it is. I just know that we are building the thing that I am passionate to build, and hopefully it rewards us. But in the meantime, the work is rewarding.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
Yeah. First of all, I mean, obviously, like when you started this, I was so excited, and I still am excited. I think it's such a great idea. And I just want to say that, flat out, it's amazing. And I tell a lot of
You've been
people
so
about
supportive. You really have. Oh, and it's because it's like the thing I know how to do is create audio products. So we have a small collection. People told me from the beginning, the only way to make money in this is volume. It's a volume industry. You've got to you will not be making money until you have at least a minimum of 25 titles. This is why startup audio companies just do anything. They'll create anything. And I don't have that because the point of differentiation for us is my reputation and my quote unquote brand. And whatever we do, I want it to be quality that I can stand behind, even if I didn't make it, right? But the stuff that we have made, we've been rewarded with it. We've got the nominations and the wins to show for it, and we just make things. I can't imagine going back to the question of, what's the goal? Like, what are you driving for? I can't imagine spending the amount of time roping my husband into this, like the energy and the money that has gone into trying to do this just to recreate something that already exists. Baffling to me that people do that.
I mean, that's been the tech culture for a lot of years. There's so many companies that have come up and gotten funded and crashed and burned because they're not really doing anything different than the next guy or taking the time to do it right as well. Because, you listen to investor pitch sessions and one of the first questions they ask you is, what's your exit strategy? Like, how are you getting out of this business? What are you going to sell it for?
Right.
I get it, but
and again, exactly, because again, if that is the goal, like if the goal is to build companies and sell them, then do that. I am always up against the fact that what I really want to do is just write and create. I'm just doing this because no one else was going to fix it, apparently.
Right.
If someone else came to me and said, I'm going to fix it, it's okay, I got this, I'd be like, cool, thank you so much. I'm just going to keep doing my little projects then. I will use your platform.
Just tap me in when you need a narrator.
In a situation. Right. We are just in a situation where this was not sustainable, and I could see AI coming down the pike for both authors and narrators. But I just could see this future where there was going to be no place for human created content to thrive, because once everybody starts falling in line, there's too much incentive to switch over to it. And I just didn't trust that other platforms or other publishers were not going to just roll over into it. And then where would we be?
Well, that's amazing. I give you all the kudos for putting that together, because that's not easy and it is so needed.
Well, thank you. I mean, I do, at a certain point, it's like, I do want to, because there is so much support and the people understand what we're doing, and I want to be doing more. I really do. I want to move into that next phase where the people that are so excited about it can start contributing to it and we can start making more things. So, that would be an upside of money, I suppose. But But in the meantime, like I said, I just wanted to get my arms around it first. I wanted to figure out, it's kind of that thing we talked about at the very beginning, where I was like, there was no clear path forward for me. There was no person to point to and say, I want to do that. And I feel the exact same way about this company. There was nothing out there that I was like, that model, that's what we're building. So I got to just take it one day at a time and, figure it out as we go along.
So I want to jump back a little bit to one of your books that I felt like I had to listen to the audiobook, even though I confess I'm a I'm a casual audiobook listener because I'm not commuting with children anymore. So I used to listen to a ton, and now it's less. But the one I had to listen to, of course, was Thanks for Listening, which is you're very meta, and I'm not talking about Facebook. The old definition of meta, rom-com about an audiobook narrator who used to be an actress.
Yes.
And so, of course, you have to listen to the book. I mean, but I loved the sexy banter between these two characters. And I think one of the things that I forget about with audiobooks that's so cool is that I can remember like where I was when I think about certain scenes from different books. And I can visualize right now exactly where I was driving in San Francisco when there was a particular scene from that book. And I was just like, oh my gosh, Julia, I didn't know you were so spicy. And then you have Casanova.
You think that's spicy?
That's the next level. Yeah.
I was going to say, I was like, wait a minute. Then she wrote Casanova LLC.
Right. No, I love it. But so the most serious question I have about this is, when are you writing the character of my future husband? Because I think I want a Julia Whelan character to be my partner.
That's a friend of mine. Is people always say about her books, you know, they're like, I don't want real men, I want an Emily Henry hero. Yeah. And fair.
So let me know, I'll be ready whenever that happens.
Okay.
So I kind of hinted at this already, but what's the next book that came after?
Well, I know.
Okay,
yeah. So Thank You for Listening came out in 2022. And then I had the brilliant idea. Actually, it was presented to me by fans, because Thank You for Listening, the premise is that two audiobook narrators fall in love while recording a romance novel, but they don't know who the other person is because they're recording under aliases. And the romance novel that they were recording, people wanted. So I got a lot of fans saying, I would love to be able to listen to this audiobook. And I thought, well, this is such a great idea. I will just write this book. I'm not a fast writer, but this will be good practice. I will just write this book and I will get it out like 6 months after Thank You for Listening. I will self-publish it and I will just throw it up there. And that was impossible. It turns out I really can't do that. So I started writing this terrible book. And then kept getting more and more pulled into it. And then it became a problem, because then I was like, okay, I either walk away from it or I have to make it good. And I finally had a draft. I showed my husband, who's always my first reader, and he said the most cutting thing he's ever said to me, which was, why are you afraid to make this good? Yeah. And I was like, first of all, fuck you. But it was the kick. But it was the kick in the ass that I needed, because he was like, there's so much interesting stuff here, but you're just like making it like a run of the mill, everything that's in your head of like what it should be. And you're not being true to these characters in this story. So I essentially threw it out and started over and did it the way that it was conceived of in Thank You for Listening, which was, I want to do it as an 8-episode audio original. And that's actually where the idea behind Audiobrary came from, because once I decided I wasn't going to sell it, I was going to do it myself. I had the problem of, how do I distribute this? Because if I distribute it as an 8-episode thing, it's going to just present as a podcast in any other distributor. And so in building the Audiobrary situation, I was like, no, this I can do. I can push out episode by episode into this app. And so it became essential to actually getting Casanova LLC out into the world. And it came out Valentine's Day of 24. It was our first project. And it's going to be coming out in print next spring.
Awesome.
The print rights were picked up. So, yeah.
I love
But it's very spicy.
Yeah, that's what...
It's very spicy. Yeah.
Was that part of, was it always very spicy, or was that part of the, like, why aren't you making this good?
So I had not written that kind of writing before. I probably will not do it again, because I don't think in terms of genre. I just think in terms of story. And for me to be able, it's like writing a rom-com that's very self-aware. Thank You for Listening is very self-aware that it is a rom-com about rom-coms. And in the same way, Casanova LLC it's a spicy romance about a sex worker. And I wouldn't know how to write a spicy romance about someone who it wasn't their job to be spicy. Does that make sense? So it was very fun, and it feels very earned. The spice in that book, the task that I set myself in writing it was I only wanted to write sex scenes that felt essential to those characters and necessary to those characters. If they could have been taken out of another book and dropped into this one, then I didn't want it. So that was part of the why are you afraid to make this good? It was making it truly, my co-narrator on it, because we did it duet, my co-narrator called it intimacy kink, because he was like, that's what it is. Like, it's all conversation and getting to know each other and finding out what makes someone hot, and that it's intimacy kink. And it only works, all of those scenes only work for those two characters that are very specific to that book.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And those are much better words for what I was trying to articulate before talking about the characters, and thank you for listening. I think that's some of the fun of a book, right? Is like, these are the things that you wish the conversation flirting was really like.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I think that's all, by God, why is romance booming in general? Right? Is as we, as a society, like push ourselves further and further away from each other, and the lack of human connection that we encounter on a day-to-day basis. And I don't want to like glorify the way, when dating used to be, you pick someone up in a bar, that was great. Make dating great again. I don't mean that. Again, not to put it that way, but I do think that there is this craving for connection on a level that is not sexual. So when it's banter, when it's teasing, when it's getting to know someone, it is that intimacy. And that, I think, is what Thank You for Listening is.
Yeah. I'm going to go back in time a little further even. How did My Oxford Year come out? I mean, what was the backstory behind that? Because this is now a Netflix movie too.
It is. It's a Netflix. I know it's a Netflix movie. So I've been waiting 14 years for this movie to come out, and they were like, "Okay, it's happening this summer." And I was like, "No, not this summer. Like, I have too much to do. Like, this is not the summer for this." I felt so ungrateful, but I was just like, "Oh God, no, I can't do more." So, okay, that actually has a fascinating origin story, which I talk about in the author's note at the end of that book. But it began life as a screenplay, which is why I'm saying I've been waiting 14 years for this movie to come out. It started as an original screenplay by a gentleman named Allison Burnett, and it was in development at Sony, and I was a screenwriter that was hired on it. I think I was the third screenwriter to come in on it with a friend of mine, actually, who also went to Oxford. We were hired to just do like an authenticity pass, like to try to make sure it felt like Oxford and the stuff was like, it was authentic. But it turned into kind of a page one rewrite, and we were the first women to write on it. And we had inherited it from some rom-com writers, really, really gifted, incredible rom-com writers who had turned Allison's very kind of dramatic story into a rom-com. And then they were like, they got to the end, which, not to spoil it, but, one of the characters is dealing with a massive medical crisis. And they were like, okay, we're done. This is not our department anymore. And so when the version of the screenplay we inherited was something like 160 pages and had no third act. And so we were developing it kind of from scratch. And the producers in that process got to know my opinions about the story and about the character, mostly the main character that I really wanted to change. But we were all kind of hemmed in by studio expectations and what you can do in the space of a screenplay. And so they're the ones who came up with the idea of, should this be a book? And I thought, oh my God, nothing has ever wanted to be a book more. I mean, it's poetry and love and the biggies, death and grief, and it's a fish out of water story. Like, there is so much here. If you want to do it right, there is so much here. And they said, great, now we need to go find a writer for the book. And I was like, hang on, wait a second. My day job is in audiobooks, right? And I have 3 books I've put in a drawer. I was working on like historical fiction at the time, and I was working on a YA novel, and it was kind of all over the place. And then this fell into my lap, and I wrote some sample pages for them. Like, I think the first chapter, they hired me. And I wrote the book, but the movie was in pre-production at the time. And so I was writing as fast as I could to try to beat the movie. And the joke of that, of course, is that Hollywood happens. The movie fell apart. It fell apart many times over the course of the last decade. And the book came out in 2018. And there hasn't been a movie until this summer. I tell this story a lot because I think it's actually a really great example of creative process and the fact that you can give 5 different writers the same quote unquote story and they will turn in something completely different. And that whenever a writer says to me, like, I'm just worried that this has been done before, there are only 7 stories in all of existence, et cetera, I'm always just like, yeah, but no one's you. And so it's been really interesting to watch as the film continued on in a development process. Other writers were brought in. It kind of forked from the book, and I changed a lot in the book so that by the time the movie actually came out, it doesn't really resemble the book. And it's just different people's visions of the same story. And this is the perfect example of that.
Yeah. Wow, that's such a great reminder, because if you're an author pitching your work, or you're trying to get an agent, or you're out on submission even, or you're just publishing an essay, there's always this element of the pitch that's like, why you? Why are you writing this? Why is it important that you write this? And I think sometimes that can feel almost flips, like, whatever, like, I'm not the only one that could write it. And it's like, yeah, you aren't the only one that could write it, but why are you the only one that should write this, you know?
Yes. For sure. I mean, even I only got that screenwriting job because I had been to Oxford and they were looking for screenwriters who had gone to Oxford. That's the only reason I got that job. But then when it became that the movie is not about Oxford to me, like, well, the book, I should say, well, neither is the movie. But what started coming out of the writing process is I was there to write about grief as far as I was concerned. I had lost my father the year before. I was in the process of taking care of my grandfather and my step-grandmother. And so I had had 2 experiences. One was sudden loss and then the dying process. And that was what I was writing about. And so that was that book to me. That book is about that. Yes, it's a love story, but it is about how do we metabolize loss? And that's a different take than the rom-com guys were coming in with.
Yeah.
You know, the entire concept for the screenplay to begin with was that one of the producers at Temple Hill went to Alison Burnett and said, I want to do love story set in Oxford. And so it in itself is derivative of that classic film love story, which in itself is derivative of Lady of the Camillas, there are only a handful of stories in the world. The question is, how are you telling it?
Wow. What a beautiful way to put it.
Well, because it also comes through in how we tell our own stories, which is in terms of branding. How do we tell the stories of ourselves? And one of the things that was so clear to me, like when that very first class of yours that I took when I was trying to figure out how to build a website. But you asked such a good question, and I still think about this a lot, which was, who are the people that you respect or the brands that you respect for being authentically themselves? Because I think we look at something like, I'm an author, who are the authors I like? And you opened that up to where I think my answers were like Bonnie Raitt, Anthony Bourdain, and In-N-Out. And that was like so revealing, because then you look at those people, those entities, again, not as things to emulate, but just like, how do they show up? How do they present themselves? And how do they tell their story?
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to those values and the things that we feel are important. And sometimes, often, I think, we don't take the time to think of that in terms of our own identity and how we're going to communicate that to other people. It's a lot of forest and trees happening when it's your own brand. So I think it really does help to think about. I mean, sometimes authors will find it odd, but I try to find examples outside of the writing world as much as possible, because the writing world is so insular. And it's like these well-worn grooves of just kind of like you were talking about before, where the publisher's just like, well, that's not how we do audiobook deals.
Right.
There's no rule. Like, why not?
Right.
Why the hell not? It makes no
Systems
sense.
are built by people. We can unbuild them. Like, what? I don't understand. I just will never understand that calcification that happens. But what I never respected was just the brush off of this is just the way it is. Well, I guess, nothing would have ever become anything with that mentality.
Right.
Nothing would ever have gotten better. We'd all be in the Middle Ages. Like, what?
Yeah. One of the statements that irks me more than any other on the face of this earth is the statement, it's just business. It makes me want to tear the room apart, because why does business exist other than to serve human beings? What?
Right.
This is just your excuse to treat people poorly?
Yes, it's that it's a god being held up of don't anger it. What do we sacrifice for it? And it's we created it. Guys, sometimes I feel like I must be just really stupid. I must be missing the point. It must be my failure of understanding something where I look at, I don't get it.
Well, it's earlier you're saying, okay, you're not that business minded, but I would argue you are. It's just maybe you're not as cutthroat capitalist business minded. You know what I mean?
Yes, I don't care about, absolutely.
Yeah.
I care about, I want to make money in this. I want to make other people money. I'm asking authors to trust me with their material. I want all of us to make money. We are all playing the capitalism game together. If you're not making money for people, then what are you making money for? I will never totally understand this. But then again, I didn't go to business school.
No, well, me either. I mean,
maybe they teach that there. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, literally, what is the point of a corporation? This is, I know we're going so off on a tangent right now, but
we also sound so stoned right now. I feel like we should tell the listeners, there was no weed involved in this, but we were sitting here being what is the point of a corporation? If you think about it.
Full of college students that are just totally getting high, and we're not. We're just high on life, but
we're high on life. I'm going to tell this story. Okay, speaking of this is all going to come together. Okay, this is going to seem very, very random, but this is going to come to my father. When he was in college for a year, he was at the University of Oregon. He got to know at that time the Nike guys who were there, and Phil Knight hired my dad and my dad's best friend from high school to create merch. They were silk screening t-shirts, Nike t-shirts that they were rolling up and putting into the shoe boxes as freebies for advertising. So they spent an entire summer silk screening t-shirts in my grandmother's garage for Nike. And at the end of the summer, they went in to have a meeting with Phil. And Phil had a shoe on his desk, and he had the Japanese shoe that the Nike shoe was a knockoff of also on the desk. Phil's a personality, and my father was 22 at the time, 21, 22. And Phil was telling him, I want to start getting into apparel. The t-shirts you guys were making, I think we could actually sell those. I don't think we have to give them away. I think we could sell them. And Dad's you're crazy, but okay. And then he's asking him about the shoe, and Phil is just going on and on and on. And my dad is this is not going to work. And they walk out of the meeting, and my father turns to Tim, his best friend, and he says, "We're not getting on that sinking ship." and that to me is you never know where something is going to go, right? But he remembers sitting there with those guys early on talking about how does money work? And they were all speaking of high, they're just guys in a dorm room. And my dad was it's about cash flow. You see, as cash flow, as it goes by, the goal is to just skim a little bit of it off. You want to skim the cash off as it goes by. That's how it started.
That's wild.
Right. And I think about that a lot, because it's sometimes, if you're my father, you're just this guy doesn't know what he's doing. We're not getting in bed with him. But sometimes you really can, you can figure it out.
Sometimes you're lucky and you get great ideas. We've been lucky. We've had some great ideas, but I'm sure we've had plenty of bad ones too. When I was I don't remember exactly how old I was when Power Rangers came out, but old enough to not be the target audience. But young enough to still be a kid, And I remember thinking, oh my God, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. This is going to last like 2 weeks. and, and I say that because, yeah, I have a good feel for a lot of things now, but I'm not a fortune teller. Like, you never know what's going to hit for other people, especially if you're not the audience for it,
I think that that's why when I say, like, the thing I know how to do is make audio content, and I know the people that I am talking to. I'm talking to the people who care about audio content. There are so many people that don't, and that's fine. But the people who do, the ones who follow narrators, who love authors, who are fans of audiobooks, they want people to be treated fairly. They want the people who make the stuff they love to be treated fairly. And that's who I'm talking to. I don't have any illusions that this is the next Audible, right? Because that's not the goal. What I want is to build that small enough community that's like a mighty community of people who I think it can support itself. I really do. People have shown up, and that's the goal. We just want to be able to keep doing more of it and create more of it and more opportunities for narrators. And I want nothing more than to be employing everyone in whatever way that I can and getting them royalties so that eventually maybe one day they can retire. What a concept.
Yeah, you're building like the REI of audiobooks.
Yes, if we were doing your branding class again, that would be, if I were doing it for Audiobrary, REI is a good one.
Well, thank you so much for talking about all of these things with me. It's been so nice to have you. And I guess the one question I would maybe like to end on is for authors who may not have the joy of getting to work with you as their narrator, for instance, and they don't want to narrate their own book. What advice would you give them in that journey of selection? Because, as you know, I'm always advocating for authors to like step up and assert their rights, even if a publisher is kind of saying, this is going to be the narrator. Any advice?
Yeah. If you are holding on to your rights, if you've given your rights to a publisher, that's a different conversation, because yes, then you are going to work within the system of they maybe send you 3 suggestions, if that, and you hopefully they listen to your opinion, but that's not guaranteed. If you have held on to your audio rights and you want to do something with them, I always recommend that if you know audiobooks and you know narrators and you have your favorites, contact them. Most people are findable. They have a website. You go DM them on Instagram. Most people are findable. And most narrators at this point in time have the ability to produce the audiobook for you. Most of us have engineers we work with, editors we work with. We do this all the time. And so don't let the idea of production overwhelm you. Go directly to the narrator that you want. And if you don't listen to audiobooks and you don't have favorite narrators, ask people who do. If you have readers, if you already have an established readership, ask them. I have been paired with a number of authors through the Audiobrary journey because fans of theirs said, Julia would be the perfect voice for your book. They don't listen to audio, but they trust their fans. So I will always advocate for going first and foremost to the narrator and see if you can just do something directly with them. Because distribution at this point is easy. There are plenty of platforms, Authors Republic, Findaway, which is now in audio, even ACX, which is Audible's arm. There are plenty of ways to just upload your files and get your audiobook out there. But it's the quality of the audiobook, and that comes back to the narrator. So start with them.
Yeah. Awesome. That's such great advice. Well, where can people find out more about Audiobrary and also you?
Okay, so I only have the Audiobrary newsletter at this point. So please sign up for the newsletter. We do not spam, because in order to do that, I would have to be writing newsletters. And I don't do that. So we only send emails when there's actually something to report, some new release or some news, some actual news. Plus you get 10% off your first purchase with us when you sign up for the newsletter. We also do rentals. I didn't mention that, but that's another thing we did that no one else does. We have rentals. You can rent our projects for a week for like a third of the price. And I'm most active on Instagram. I'm on TikTok occasionally, but I'm most active on Instagram. But my handle everywhere is just Julia Whelan.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. I really, really appreciate it. It was so fun to
Thank
chat.
you.
We're going to have to do this
So
more
good to
often.
catch up.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yes, in Italy, preferably.
Yes, in Italy. Maybe we should do a retreat together there. You have that retreat. Uh, yeah. Is that still available in Oxford?
Um, yeah, so this September, I am doing 2 literary tours if people are interested. One is for this company that I adore. I've actually been a participant on one of their tours, and I'm doing Sense and Sensibility in the Cotswolds. So that go to Common Ground Pilgrimages, and that's on there. And then I am leading my own tour of Oxford. It's a 5-night Oxford tour where we're going to do some guided walks, and there's going to be classes and lectures and really good meals and stuff like that. And right now, that is linked in all of my bios everywhere.
Sure, all the links are in the show notes too.
And
But that sounds amazing.
if there's not availability for the Oxford one, because as of this recording, join the wait list if it's something that you would actually want to do, because it's very possible that I could do a week, another one like right after, if there's enough interest.
Great note. And I actually, I'm going to say this is another like bonus behind the scenes tip. If you are interested in going into a retreat or joining a class or anything from someone and it's full, always join the wait list, because it's not like you are obligated, but it tells that creator how much interest there is. And it really does influence, I can say from my perspective, and I'm sure you would agree, it gives us a gauge of how many people are interested and how viable it is to do it again.
Yes, absolutely. And even more than that, you're actually helping people who may have to cancel, because the way that these trips happen is like we can't just give people a refund when they cancel, but we promise them that if we can fill their spot, then we will give them a refund. So definitely sign up for the wait list, because it's not futile at all.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Thanks again. I'm saying thank you a million times, but I do mean it.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll see you soon.